Well, prices are on everyone's lips here at Intersolar 2024, the Smartery in Munich. I'm Jonathan Gifford, the editor at large at PV Magazine. I'm joined by Karen Tang from OPIS in Europe. She's the editorial lead for this region. Karen, your organization tracks pricing, but right across the whole energy industry, the energy sector. What's the latest in terms of pricing in solar?
For the module side, I think we could all say that it's not particularly rosy. Prices are at record lows. Our last indications for TopCon modules are around 10 cents, 10.5 cents or so. Still, people don't see that as the bottom, that prices could still drop a little bit more. The sentiment, what we're hearing on the forward prices, that there still could be room to cut prices further. So it seems at the moment, at least for modules, there's still some pain to go through. And we're not really over the worst of it yet.
Okay, the end is not in sight. I think what is a little bit different than we may have experienced in years past is that this price pressure is right through the solar supply chain. And in fact, polysilicon prices are at unheard of lows. What are you seeing in terms of the trend, and is there an end in sight?
Well, yeah, so I think when we spoke last year, it was mainly everyone was talking about module prices going down. And let's say the sectors like polysilicon, they're a little bit more protected from the situation. But now we're seeing those price pressure, the downwards pressure, really spread across both upstream and downstream. So the polysilicon manufacturers, yes, we have heard that even in the global, let's say the non-Chinese polysilicon, that they're struggling to, some of their, let's say their end users reselling their product because they're closing down some of their utilization rates, they're shutting down some of their production capacity, they don't need the product. And so with the reducing run rates, that they just don't need as much polysilicon as before. And so there's a lot of uncertainty as well with what's happening with the, with the US, the anti-dumping and the countervailing duties. So whether this premium for, the overseas polysilicon, you could say, there's just a lot of uncertainty and a lot of nervousness. So we're seeing polysilicon prices in the current market, in the prompt market, very weak compared to, let's say, prices further out where they improve a little bit because people expect there to be more certainty after, after the regulations are out.
Okay, and it starts to feel like it's a race to the bottom right across the solar supply chain. What are the implications of that? Is this at all sustainable?
Yeah, so it's very competitive. I mean, we heard from distributors now saying that, we can sell to this region at this price, but then they have their competitors selling at, like 2 cents below them. And when your module is only costing 10 cents or so, the 2 cents is quite a big difference. And I guess below their production, their cost prices as well. So on the installation side, on the distribution side, and, as well as all the upstream, the cell manufacturers, the wafer manufacturers, polysilicon, everyone, like, in that race to the bottom, they're all selling below their cost price. So it's a very unhealthy situation, for the industry to be in for the most, yeah.
Well, that's interesting you say unhealthy, because OPIS is an organization that tracks pricing right across energy, as I said, and solar is becoming an increasingly important part of the global energy supply. We're talking 580 gigawatts or something to be installed this year. That's a huge amount of capacity. If it's an unhealthy industry that's supplying it, what are the implications for energy? Or is this just good, robust competition making solar competitive, or is it unstable and unreliable? What are the implications?
I guess, yeah, it depends on which side of the coin you're on. So I guess overall, we know that, the world is electrifying, that there will be more solar growth. And ultimately, solar will, it is competing overall with coal, with natural gas, with other, energy fuels and so on. To that end, I think the talks of efficiency and, like whether solar can really produce at scale, for the grid and so on, I think that debate seems to be moving on. So now it's more really concentrated on, let's say, making the grid more efficient or so on, rather than the technology itself. So I think overall, like, it helps solar deployment. It makes solar a lot more competitive with other fuels. So in that sense, I think it is healthy. But I suppose for all of us in the industry, it's just difficult time when, let's say, some of our colleagues were at SNEC last week, and the conversations are very much geared around, oh, who's going to die next year? It's all very bleak, so amongst this side of the coin, not a rosy picture, but I suppose there's still sort of your final hopes that we can get through this period, and then let's say in 2 years' time, if we do see the consolidation that people are talking about, then it'll be a much healthier industry to be in. But just at the moment, it is quite bleak. Yeah.
So the fittest will survive. It's interesting that you mentioned, competition with other energy sources. That's also in flux as well. Very different from 2 years ago or 2022 when gas prices were sky high. I saw some research very recently from IEFA. They were saying that they're expecting a gas glut through, out to 2030. Is that what you see as well? Because that would be very competitive for solar or add some more competitive stress on the solar industry.
Yeah, so let's say in the natural gas markets, we know that the storage levels in Europe are quite full. Europe has managed to secure other supply sources from the US, from the Middle East for gas now. The US is particularly producing a lot of natural gas for export. So this feeling of, supply shortage has passed. And so with that, there doesn't seem to be the likelihood of another spike in natural gas. Not to say that it won't happen, but let's say in the near term, that because we've gone through this one crisis, we've learned how to deal with this one crisis. We've, filled up our storages, diversified the supply portfolio, that there's we can weather this winter. Unless something, crazy happens weather-wise, but better positioned, to weather future price spikes. So then that will keep pressure on electricity prices and power prices overall, which will make it a little bit hard for solar as well.
Okay, well, it's good news for consumers, I suppose, on the other side of it, and for energy security. It's going to be competitive for solar, but we've seen solars continue to innovate and remain competitive over the years. Karen Tang from OPIS, thank you very much for your time here at the Smarter E. The pricing very much in flux. It's a big topic for discussion and will be for some time. I'm Jonathan Gifford here at the Smarter E 2024.